Flipped around. Okay.
It's quite a sad scene with her on a phone.
We call this Where It Begins. A woman contemplates. We are live.
Oh, your camera's drunk. I don't know. No. I don't know. Anybody want to do welcome to country or anything like that? Anybody want to start things off?
Yes, but I don't know the words.
I don't either.
You can add it later before you put it on it. So
Oh yeah, you can do that later. Just say it after. He won't hear.
Acknowledge the original custodians of the land on which we gather today. Yeah. Elders and pastors,
Wow.
and
Well done.
what do you do with the elders? And I'd like to pay my respect. Elder, get out. If you don't do it, then you get hammered.
For being disrespectful, yeah.
How are you? You good? Nice speech. Jack. We lost your voice. I've seen you around, so yeah, your speech, obviously.
I'd just like to acknowledge the original custodians on the land on which we gather today, the Jacarot and Turrbal people, and acknowledge, pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. So who would like to have the mic?
Hey.
Hey, hello.
Go Cal.
The PA is pretty good, so I'm guessing everybody can hear me.
Yeah, that's very good.
Okay. I just want to touch on last night for me and this morning for me. And I'm pretty steely. I don't mind getting up here and talking. I don't mind doing this kind of street turfing in Australia. But before Brisbane and before Melbourne, I slept like a log. But last night I did not sleep. And that, all I could think about was what had happened in Auckland and how it went from Sydney to Brisbane through, and we had less protection as women as each event went on Kelly J's tour. For me to witness that in real time, as I've seen it on the YouTube, to going and getting my butt to another state to witness and record that, how the situation was escalating for us women and certain boundaries were violated with what happened in our organisers. So, you know, being the PA lady in Brisbane, I could see what our organisers had done, what they'd gone through, and to see there was moments where it was conscious. That's as far as I witnessed and what I experienced. There was conscious manipulating going on. You rewatch some of that footage that I've got in Melbourne and you can see things are triggered off each other. I was really, really worried in looking at my footage of the birthing couple to the wiggy fella, and that was a fella. Now he gets his phone out and actually videotapes or photos the birthing couple. So as far as I'm concerned, from what I'm seeing on my own footage, which I have now backed onto a hard drive, by the way, is a coordinated event of these university students or whatever they are. So unfortunately, we're not just dealing with those who have the mental illness of autogynephilia. We're not just dealing with those who have, hatred towards women, but we're also dealing with these people who want to score point off their activism. And they're not really considering today what they're going to be causing tomorrow. It's all good and fun and games. And in Auckland, what I seen at the Rotunda afterwards was like the Pride Mardi Gras coming at you. We're going to have a festival on your grave. That's what I saw afterwards. So what the question I want to pose to our LGBT community is this. What I want to ask is, how proud of your pride are you now after Auckland? How proud of your pride? Because this just kind business stops. It stopped that day that you took free speech away from my sisters in New Zealand. It stops today.
Yay! Woo! Yes.
So as I'd always say, stay loud, my friends. Until next time, I'm passing the mic.
She's prepared, good girl. Hey, Phoebe!
Thank you.
Yay!
Thank you for coming. Thank you to the Quantum Mega people. Okay, so I was taking my daughter to the change room where I do my exercise. I walk past the men's change room and then I go in the next one. I was just like, Mum, that change room had just a man's picture and this one has got a man and a woman. Well, where's the one for just the girls? I acted surprised. No, I don't know. We're going to have to get in touch with the builders and fix it up. Yeah? Because what am I supposed to tell her? Am I supposed to tell her that No, I'm not going to do what the government wants. I'm going to tell her that if a little boy goes in the change room at school, she's going to have to step out. I'm going to tell her that she's in a woman's room and a man comes in, it's not okay. Yeah. I have to tell her the truth about things.
Yeah. Yes, good girl.
Yeah.
Good girl.
And now I've got sons as well. So I'm getting to the stage where I've got to let them go in the men's room because they're big and brave. Right, if my little boys can go in that men's room, well then a man in a dress can go in the men's room.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
All right. If you just listen to me, I just want to tell you what the Human Rights Commission is telling schools to do. They're telling them that if any kid wants to change their gender, go for it. Don't tell the parents, right? So what you have now is your kids don't have sex-based rights in their school anymore. And they don't want you to know, because that's the policy. Don't tell the parents, and if the parents come down, or you send them over to counselling, all right, so that they can be counselled, re-educated. I'm not having it. What else? You know what? Let's keep the happy mood, but I'm going to say I am a survivor, all right? And so we need to have female police officers, we need female counsellors, female lawyers, and female groups. You need to listen to us, the survivors. We're not the crazy ones that don't have a perspective. We're actually the people. You should be coming to me and asking me what I think.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good girl. Go, Andrea.
Hey! This is my first time here.
Brilliant. Well done,
It
honey.
takes a lot of courage to come out in front of everybody. But I want to start with, I'm not against anybody living their life the way they choose. But I don't believe that one group's rights supersede another's.
Yep, absolutely.
As a woman who's served this country in a male-dominated environment, I've been sexually assaulted on numerous occasions. As a child, I was molested by 2 men when I was 6 and I was 7. But they were dreams that I thought that I had, but my mother only last year confirmed that those were real, actual events. I've had 4 daughters in the time that I've been alive, and I'm very proud of those girls. 3 out of 4 of my daughters have already been raped or sexually attacked, and they are only 26, 23, 21 and 16. My youngest has gone through hell at school where she didn't fit into certain groups. She wasn't dark enough, she wasn't white enough, because my youngest is biracial. So she found protection in a group that was supposed to allow her to be free to be who she was. But that caused her so much mental anguish that my daughter was unable to figure out who she was supposed to be by the time she was 12, 14. Thankfully, taking her out of the system, which I recommend to anybody, homeschooling my daughter has allowed my daughter to find her own voice and empower herself. She makes choices now that are good for her. I believe that what's happening at the moment is nothing that the suffragettes started out for women. I want women to have a voice. I don't tell anyone what they should or shouldn't do. And this is not about bathrooms. This is about our female human rights. If the men who profess themselves to be transgendered women, that's great. Nobody's telling you can't be. But why, if you feel threatened in a male's toilets, do you not think that women like myself who have been sexually abused, assaulted, attacked or raped don't now second guess themselves going into a woman's bathroom? Because every day now, I do no longer use a bathroom. I will wait till I go home. So now you're excluding me from society. So if inclusion is your be kind motto, then how is excluding 50% of humanity inclusion?
Just want to let everyone know who's watching that we are safe and we don't have any counter protests, so it should be a nice peaceful event. And I want to just agree with what Kellyanne said about the lack of sleep, because unfortunately now we live in a time where talking about our female sex-based rights causes a mob of violent men to come after us. And no, we are not having it.
Yay.
We are not. We are the growing group of women who are saying no to these disgusting men. And what we have witnessed in the last 2 weeks, because it's been caught on film for millions of people to watch, is just nothing less than state-sanctioned male violence against women. With absolutely no fucking consequences. I am still in disbelief as what happened when Kelly J came over here, and everybody I've spoken to just can't believe it. So I know that we are a growing number of women who are just, we have no more fucks to give. Our Be Kind bucket is fucking empty. And it's not being refilled either. A woman is more than a feeling inside a man's head, and I will go to my grave to say that.
Yay, good girl.
A message to Shannon Fentiman, our Minister for Women, who wants to allow any man to identify as a woman and come into mine and my daughter's safe private spaces over my fucking cold dead body. Absolutely not. You're going to have to arrest a lot of people, because a lot of people do not agree with this. Most people are in reality. We know who the men are, we know who the women are. Even without our eyes, we know who they are from our ears. We can tell who the men are.
Smell them.
We can fucking smell them. Trying to put into law something completely unbased in reality is just not going to work. There's too many of us. We are the fucking storm.
Yeah! Mic drop.
Yeah, so that law that Leah's referring to, the Criminal Code, Serious Vilification and Hate Crimes and Other Legislation Amendment Bill 2023, that our Minister for Women, Shannon Fentiman, wants to introduce such a misnomer. So it'll be vilification on grounds of race, religion, sexuality, or gender identity.
No sex.
No sex. So that means that any form of communication to the public, including by speaking, writing, printing, displaying notices, broadcasting, telecasting, yada, 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 and any conduct that is observable by the public, so actions, gestures, and the wearing or display of clothing, signs, flags, emblems, or insignia. So they're trying to make it a hate crime to say that men are not women. And as Leah said, they'll have to be arresting a lot of us.
Yeah.
But yeah, you'd be forgiven if you thought we were living in a dystopian nightmare here in Queensland. The Minister for Women actively silencing us, silencing women who dare to express opposition to her plans to introduce self-ID. She's deleting any comments which don't support her on her Facebook page, and she's actively blocking women like me from participating on that platform. And of course, she leaves positive comments up for all to see to give the false impression that she has the support of the public, which she does not. So Shannon Fentiman, the Minister for Women, is censoring women, blocking us out of the conversation. She is also untrustworthy. She lied and said women's groups were consulted on her flawed proposed legislation, when in actual fact we only ever got one video link up with the Department of Justice and Attorney with bad tech and bad sound to be given an overview of the proposed bill, as well as an opportunity to ask 3 questions of one of the TRAs on Fentiman's staff. But following this, we had no further input, and she says that was a consultation. Our concerns that we raised in the submissions to the Parliamentary Committee were then ignored. This week, Trans Day of Visibility was the 22nd of March. Did women try to hijack this event for themselves?
No.
No. Yet here in Brisbane, at the start of March for International Women's Day, women needed police protection from aggressive men parading around in skirts and dresses in their female handmaidens, claiming trans women are women. Women and survivors had our voices drowned out by men with megaphones chanting abuse. And soon after IWD, when women's rights campaigner Kelly J was in Australia and New Zealand again, women needed police protection to gather to discuss our rights. And then in Hobart and again in Auckland, we watched in horror as women were attacked and assaulted. Police ignored calls for help from women being abused by violent trans extremist thugs. Kelly J and other women feared for their lives. A woman, Caitlin, was at the Let Women Speak event in Auckland. She too feared for her life. No women were able to speak that day because of mob violence from trans extremists. That was their intention. Caitlin has since written about her experience, and I'll read some now. She says, I underestimated the hysteria that had been whipped up. I underestimated the police. I never seriously thought I would be in real, actual danger attending a speaking event in New Zealand. People were asking, why was Kelly J. Keane invited here? Wasn't it just inviting drama? Well, let me answer that. KJK was invited here because she is me. She is a mother and a woman who is fed up with the erosion of female-only spaces, fed up with being called a menstruator or pregnant person, and fed up with watching young gender non-conforming and homosexual children being sterilised and mutilated. Kelly J. Keane was going to give me a voice, a platform. She was invited here because I wanted to listen to her, and last time I checked, I'm allowed to do that. We are not anti-trans. I don't particularly give a shit about whether people are trans or not. Dress how you want, sleep with who you want, and live your life. But don't play on female sports teams. Don't record male rapists as women in the crime stats. Don't use our changing rooms, and don't be jailed with us. More importantly, don't teach my child that boys can have a period. Don't teach my tomboy daughter that she really must be a boy if she likes rugby and hates her period. Don't tell young lesbians they have a genital fetish if they refuse to have sex with a man with a penis. And don't socially transition my children at school behind my back.
Yeah.
Is that really so fucking unreasonable? Did that really warrant the violence and mob today? Do those views really justify men shoving women and having the media paint me as a Nazi? In New Zealand, this is an election year. I was put in danger today because of the Labor Party, the Greens Party, and the mainstream media whipping up a frenzied mob of hatred against Kelly J. Keane and therefore by extension me. I was in danger today because of our police force. For whatever reason, they decided not to do their job and provide a barricade between peaceful women trying to speak and the baying mob. I was ultimately put in danger though because no one in this country will stand up to bullies and defend women's rights. Instead, you sit silently by and tacitly give your consent to this, and I have no idea why. These people will never vote for you, no matter how many big gay outs you attend. You say you believe KJK had the right to speak, but you all say you disagree with her views. Which ones exactly? Which view mentioned above precisely do you disagree with? This isn't rhetorical. At this point, I have a right to know what our MPs think on this matter. Until you start speaking up for women, I will not vote for you. I'm a mum of 3, soon to be 4. She was actually pregnant at the rally. I pay taxes out the wazoo and am engaged with my wider community. I'm a good civic-minded citizen, and today I learned that it is all for nothing. I expect to be able to speak to MPs about what happened today in person, and I expect MPs to stand up and ask why the police provided no protection. I expect MPs to denounce the violence shown towards peaceful women in no uncertain terms, and most importantly, I expect to know where your party stands on these issues. One thing you can be sure of after today is that we won't have to invite someone like Kelly J. Keane here from the UK again. I am angry after today, and so many, many women and men are. If there is one thing being pregnant in the middle of a feral mob does, is it makes you fucking angry, and it makes your husband even angrier. And unlike the violent, rabid, mostly student and unemployed trans activists, we won't use that anger against middle-aged women. We will use that anger to politically and publicly shame you until you do your bloody jobs and represent us.
Yeah.
That's from Caitlin in New Zealand, who was not able to speak at the Let Women Speak event. Meantime, here in Queensland, the Minister for Women, Shannon Fentiman, does not represent women. The Queensland Labor Party does not represent women, but women will continue to speak. It is our right to speak about things that affect us. We will not stop speaking and demanding our rights. You can arrest all of us.
Yeah.
Oh, hang on, I gotta scroll to the top. Scroll. Yeah. G'day, I'm Nina. I'm a leftist, a radical feminist.
Yay.
There have been times in history when women have had to band together outside of the mainstream left and outside of the mainstream right. And one of those times is upon us now. Just for clarity's sake, I wanted to find some words before I go on. The word sex refers to the 2 biological categories that mammals and many other organisms fall into for the purpose of reproduction. It's not who you are, it's what you are. It doesn't determine what you look like or how you behave, it only determines how you reproduce. One sex has the potential to create small gametes, or sperm. The other sex has the potential to create large gametes, or eggs. There is no third type of reproductive system or gamete. There is no intermediate type of reproductive system or gamete. There are differences of sexual development within the developmental pathways of male or female, what we used to call intersex, but those people are still male or female. It is impossible for human beings to change sex. We are not clownfish. Gender refers to the social and cultural roles, activities, appearances, behaviours, expectations, basically stereotypes, that have been traditionally associated with the 2 sexes. Gender is sex role stereotypes. I want you to keep those 2 definitions in mind. In 1980, Australia became a signatory to the UN Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, the CEDAW. The Convention sets out women's rights for the purpose of ending discrimination on the basis of sex, which is defined by the UN and anyone with a brain as the physiological differences differentiating males from females. The Convention came into effect in 81, and in 84, in order to fulfil our obligations as a signatory, we got the Federal Sex Discrimination Act. In 2013, the definition of a woman as a person of the female sex was deleted from the very law meant to protect us from sex discrimination. At the same time, protections for a subjective inner feeling called gender identity was inserted into the Act. Now, get ready for the deep dive into insanity. The definition of gender identity in the Sex Discrimination Act is the gender-related identity, appearance, mannerisms, and other gender-related characteristics, regardless of transition and regardless of designated sex at birth. FYI, I don't know about any of you, but I wasn't designated as sex. My sex was determined at conception. So, did everybody catch that? Remember that gender means sex role stereotypes. Women no longer exist as a category in law, as a sex, but a bloke who says he's a woman is definitely one because of the sex role stereotype related identity, the sex stereotype related appearance, mannerisms, and other sex stereotype related characteristics, regardless of sex, regardless of transition. The sexed reality of women has been erased from law, and we have been made unspeakable. The stereotypes used to oppress us have been enshrined and used to redefine what we are in the fucking Sex Discrimination Act, no less. As bad as that is, that law change is not just insulting. What it has done has cleared the way for the states to make laws allowing any man who says he's a woman, who declares that he's a woman, to change the sex marker on his birth certificate. Without transition, without a diagnosis of gender dysphoria, simply a declaration. After that, he must be treated as if he is female for all purposes, and if anyone challenges him, he can sue them for discrimination on the basis of gender identity. Because trans women are women, right? No. So any man who says he's a woman can identify his way into our toilets and change rooms, our hospital wards and psych wards, our prisons and our rape and domestic violence shelters, our scholarships and awards, our shortlists, our affirmative action quotas. Men's violent and sexually violent crimes are now recorded as female crimes, skewing the crime statistics. If we don't have accurate statistics about male violence, how can we combat it? If you are new to this conversation, and you think that we are somehow talking about transsexual people, you are mistaken. Any man who said he's a woman, regardless of transition, any man. This is about men. Women, oh geez, I've lost where I am. Women around the world are waking up. We are speaking up, and we have been met with systematic silencing and censorship. We get our personal details released to the internet at large. Our families and children are threatened. We get sacked from our jobs for stating the simple biological fact that humans cannot change sex. And sex remains a politically important category for those who are discriminated against on the basis of sex. Women. Feminist Megan Murphy was banned from Twitter for saying, "Men aren't women." That's not hate speech. Women have been taken to court for the crime of calling a man a man. Lately, the opposition has escalated to violence. A woman was attacked and left disabled last year in Melbourne for speaking the truth about sex on Facebook. A woman in Sydney was followed and punched after having her conversation about sex overheard. In Auckland, women holding a rally just like this one were attacked by a violent mob, baying for blood, whipped up by corrupt and complicit media and politicians. A 72-year-old woman punched in the face. He cracked her fucking skull. I live in a very progressive left-wing community. There are not just men, but women in my progressive left-wing community who are justifying the violence that those women faced because of the words that they wanted to say. Well, I want to say those words. My grandmother says those words. My mother and my sister say those words. How wrong does your opinion have to be before you can get fired from your job? How many words do you have to get wrong before you deserve to be punched in the face? Is this how purges start? Is this Maoist China during the Cultural Revolution? Is this a democracy or isn't it? Do we have a right to freedom of speech and freedom of opinion and freedom of expression, or don't we? Women in my progressive left-wing community reckon that those women in Auckland, feminists, lesbians, Pākehā and Maori, elders and young women, that they were asking for it. Where have we heard that before? Make no mistake, misogyny is not a poison exclusive to the right wing. Women and our male allies, it's time for us to stand together. I know it's hard, I know there's a backlash, I know it can affect your reputation, and I understand that the people are afraid to lose their jobs, they need to pay their mortgage, they need to feed their kids. If you are unemployed or wealthy enough or retired or own your own home, please start speaking up. How many more women have to be sacrificed on the altar of this neoliberal, postmodern, fake progressive bullshit? The suffragettes in England fought for decades against a Labour government for the vote. They tried to make their voices heard through normal channels, and they were denied access to participation in democracy. The suffragettes won in the end, and now they're seen as heroes, but at the time they were hated. They had to resort to other tactics, and I strongly suggest everybody read Emmeline Pankhurst's book about those tactics. At the Let Women Speak rally in Sydney, a wonderful woman gave a short but powerful speech in relation to the vilification and hate speech laws that are making our true and accurate speech about sex illegal. If they change the laws, she said, well then we've got to fucking break them. If they want to send us to jail, well then let's go to jail, en masse. That's what women did during the fight for the vote. And women broke the unjust laws in the 60s and 70s too. Women weren't allowed in pubs in Australia, so they chained themselves to the bar. It is the duty of every citizen to protest unjust laws. I call on every woman in Australia to resist all sexist laws. Do not comply. If we need to run a campaign of civil disobedience for decades, we'll do it. Yeah. And like the feminists who came before us, we will win.
Yeah! Oh, no. No, you're all right.
It's all right.
Right, I haven't prepared anything, and I wasn't really expecting to speak. But obviously, my experience in this started just mid last year, when I was kicked out of roller derby for saying men shouldn't play on women's sports. That was it. I was vilified, I was attacked, I was abused for 3 days. I was told I incite murder and suicide. I was called a TERF, I've never heard that word before. And now obviously I wear it with pride, I love it. Because TERF means I understand the difference between men and women and I want to protect children. That's what TERF means. So yeah, I was at the Brisbane rally last week, and I was in the army. I was in the army for 7 years, in the British Army. I served in Northern Ireland. I sat in a bathtub with a helmet and a flak jacket on when there was a coffee jar bomb going off on camp. I sat there and shat myself. But I've never been as scared as I was last Saturday, because I thought, all these women here, there were so many of us, but then this mob came up. They doubled us. And there were so many women there, and they were pushing forward the young girls with green hair to shout horrible things about women being TERFs, being whores, we were called. We were just placards with endless words like fuck and bitch and all. What would I didn't get any of it, and I was expecting something, but I've never felt so scared, especially when the police said they were going to keep them back there, but then they didn't. They let them come forward. And where they were was where the bubblers were, so we weren't getting any water during that. But luckily, when so many of them turned up, they pushed them back. And I thought, if I went to that bubbler, or to the toilet that's over there, if I'd have just scraped that crowd, I imagine a couple of them would have grabbed me and they would have hurt me. And that's what I felt like. And it was absolutely petrifying. And I can't even think about what the women in New Zealand went through and how horrific that was. And like I said, I had nothing to say other than we have to keep fighting this, we have to keep posting. When everybody gets home tonight, you see this video, share it, get everybody to share. I brought my daughter today, she's never been to one of these before. She's here, she's down there listening because I'm sure she's bored, but you know, I wanted her to see women and men gathering and saying what they have to say. I want her to tell her friends what she did this weekend, and I want her to know that that this is going on, because luckily she's in a school where I have asked her, have you got any trans people in your school? She went, oh, there's a couple of boys that say they're girls, and but we don't take them seriously, because luckily it's not indoctrinated where they are, luckily. And she's towards the end of her schooling, so she's been educated by me in the last year or so she understands what's going on, and she won't take it. So we're lucky there. So all my suggestion is, whenever we do these again, bring a stranger, bring a female or a male that's never been to this, especially if they don't know, and then I'm telling you, it'll trigger them and they will share something. It's all it takes. And they'll be vilified. And I love that we're getting called Nazis now. After this 2 weeks, Nazis. You remember the Nazis, the purveyors of women's rights? Yeah. Do you remember them? Yeah. I remember them. They were all for the rights of other people other than so. Anyway. And that was it for me. That's all. I've got nothing to say other than that. So just come up and say anything, anybody. Just tell us how pissed off you are. Anybody? Yeah.
Hi everyone. Let me just start by saying that I was really incensed by what happened in Auckland last weekend. I watched the baying mob. I read tweets about from trans activists online gloating about what happened, and a part of me thought the mainstream media would know better. I thought reporters would be more responsible and not join in the vitriol spread by the mob, but unfortunately they did, and I was really disgusted by that. So the extremist ideologues shout, intimidate and clamp down on our speech, hoping to drown out their voices. They're afraid of anyone speaking out and questioning their religious beliefs, so much so that they have to bring in hate speech laws and label us transphobes and Nazis. One has to wonder, what vested interests do they have to gain from all of this? What makes them so sensitive to criticism that they have to resort to far-right accusations, threats and meaningless insults? And what have they got to lose from anyone questioning their beliefs? There are women and men out there who will claim to be allies of the alphabet community. They want to be good people, virtue signal and do right. They will self-censor and walk on eggshells just to please others. They're part of a workplace that promotes itself as a safe space and inclusive of gender diverse individuals in their organisations. This has led to people being afraid to speak out for fear of losing their jobs, being slandered by everyone left, right and centre as bigots by everyone, sorry. The mainstream media, political class and their servants have played a part in creating a culture where surgical body modification and a lifetime of medication has been glorified, where it's now acceptable to haul a friend or a co-worker over the coals over incorrect usage of preferred pronouns. The counter demonstration that we saw in Auckland last weekend is a result of this fear and tacit support. In the same world, we wouldn't have to stand here together, nor make speeches stating the bloody obvious that men cannot be women, nor would our views be controversial. We wouldn't need police protection for stating this. Unfortunately, this is the world we are living in right now. Let me finalise by saying, if your side has to demonise, defame and accuse its opponents of hate speech, then you have already lost.
Yeah. Yes.
The truth will never be on your side.
Yes. Good job.
Is that all the ladies?
Jesus.
Even the unladylike ladies?
What's up, turfs? Just want to talk today about two concepts, and that is pronouns and also gender ideological language and the presuppositions that come with them. So, when we talk about pronouns, let's discuss first, why are we told that we need to use them? And let's think about that. And we're told pronouns are important to use, or preferred pronouns. They're not preferred, they're coerced pronouns.
Yeah.
But we're told that we need to use them to affirm somebody's identity. so that they feel included and not triggered. So it's our responsibility to participate in a shared delusion so that we don't trigger somebody's feelings, which also self-declared. So we have to help mitigate their self-declared alleged gender dysphoria. So now we've established why we need to use pronouns. Let's talk about what they are from a linguistic perspective and break them down. So we have first person pronouns, second person and third person. So first person pronouns, me, myself and I. So I will use first person pronouns when I'm talking about myself. Second person pronouns are when I'm speaking to you or when you're speaking to someone directly. So you, yours and yourself. Now, it's important here to realise second person pronouns are gender neutral. So keep that in mind because that's significant. Now, third person pronouns, he, him, her, he, him, and she, her. So if he asks me to use she, her pronouns for him. But third person pronouns are not when you're speaking to someone, it's when you're speaking about someone. They didn't have to be there. So why do we have to use preferred pronouns when you're not even there? So is it really to mitigate your dysphoria and to be respectful and inclusive when we're talking to you using our second person gender neutral pronouns? No. It's not trying to be respectful, it's trying to control what you think. It's trying to control your beliefs. So this preferred pronouns, coerced pronouns, is a lie and it falls down upon closer inspection. So think about that and remember, nobody has the right to claim agency over your beliefs and coerce you to manifest them through your speech. One more time, nobody has the right to claim agency over your beliefs and force you or coerce you to manifest them through your speech. So the other concept I'd like to talk about, gender ideological language and the duplicitous presuppositions that come with them. Transgender ideology is full of things like this, and you can find them everywhere, but I won't go too overboard with it, but biological woman. So, biological woman, as opposed to what? Mechanical? Cybernetic? Paper mache? It's important as TERFs, gender critics, or even people that simply believe in reality, to understand and realise the significance of using this gender dogmatic language in some contexts. When we say biological women, there's an implicit assumption there. And that assumption is that there can be some other kind. There cannot. Transition. When a young woman has a double mastectomy, radical gender extremists will say she has transitioned. Transitioned to what? Certainly not a man. The correct and clinical term is she has mutilated herself irreversibly. It's not cross-sex hormones. That implies that you can change sex. It is wrong sex hormones. Lupron, you cannot. It's not puberty blockers. It is Lupron. You cannot block your puberty. It is chemical castration. So, when a porn-sick, immoral, organophilic man inverts his penis, he has not transitioned, he has castrated himself. He does not have a vagina. He does not have a neo-vagina. He has a necrotic flesh wound. So, in summary, to finish, there's no need to say biological women or biological woman because there can be no other kind.
I've got one more thing to say. Everyone knows we have Pride Month, right? What's this month?
Still going.
It's April. What happens in April in this country?
Anzac Day.
Correct. This Anzac Day, as a veteran, a female veteran, my family goes all the way to the third light horse. If you really want to make a stance on Anzac Day, turn your back on every single politician that takes the podium to speak for Anzac Day. Because then you're sending the message that what you're doing to this country is not what we friggin' fought for. It's not what me and my husband went to war for. We're here to defend everyone's rights, and to take my rights after I fought for yours, I don't accept that. And politicians are enforcing that shit. And I want everyone to turn your back on any politician that takes a podium on Anzac Day.
Yeah.
That's what I want.
Hello. I'm having an out-of-body experience right now because this is my first time doing this. Yeah. I'm used to a karaoke set, more like, but yeah. Thanks. Yeah, there's a lot of ways I could approach this, and it feels like if I was speaking to a friend about this subject, about the collision of the trans with the LGB, I feel like the conversation would be loaded with potential conflict, and I feel right now immediately obligated to tiptoe gently around all the possibilities and frame it as kindly as possible, because heaven forbid that I should care enough about this to get a little bit riled up, or maybe even slightly angry. I'm going to do my best to tone that down, because I know on the live stream, maybe if you've committed this far, I'm not going to be doxing myself necessarily, but whatever, it's a risk I've got to take. I want to be, I want to be on the record as standing on the right side of history, and I feel more people need to do this. And I've followed the journey from the get-go. I didn't think I'd ever be announcing my sexuality to a crowd of strangers, or need to, because it was supposed to be something private, but Jesus Christ. Here we are. I was forced into an acronym that I've defended for a long time, and I've been forced to apply a bit of scrutiny to that acronym. It used to be lesbian, gay, bisexual, and these trans people were along for the ride. And traditionally, that just meant a drag queen that took it too far. But now that T has been infiltrated and hijacked, and I don't believe in an organic way. I really believe this is a top-down UN kind of thing. I could put my tinfoil hat on, but I encourage anybody to go, who's watching this right now, to look up Jennifer Bilek and the Trans Agenda. Just watch that. It's a fascinating journey, but the moral of the story is that Roblox is a bad place. It's a casino for children. It encourages disembodiment and disassociation like nothing else. And because of all these lockdowns, because of this hyper screen fixated young generation coming up, they identify more with their online avatars than they do with their own bodies. That is a recipe for mental illness and like immoral surgeons to make a fortune butchering children, and I won't stand for it. I was kind of rehearsing this in my head, and I can have really awesome arguments by myself at home, but yeah, here I am up on stage. But I was imagining that maybe we'd have a deranged crowd with all of their multicolored hair and weird costumes and stuff, yelling back at us, yelling their mantras, and I was hoping that some of them would hook onto that, trans rights are human rights, and say, cool, okay, what does that mean? What are human rights? Can we boil that? Can we break that apart? Oh no, we just got mantras. That's all we got. Don't ask me. No debate. Don't ask me follow-up questions. But if you were to boil it down and acknowledge that all human rights stem from the right to free speech, and after what happened in Auckland, if you are staying silent on this, if you are making excuses for elderly women being punched in the face for wanting to have a voice, and suggest that maybe men accessing their space isn't good for them, and this is so ridiculous to have to revisit the absolute basics of human civilization, but here we are. And I feel it's deliberate. Again, watch that documentary, Jennifer Bilek. Somebody's really trying to wreck society from the ground up to justify some great reset. It's coming, it sounds crazy, but yeah, I don't want to go like tinfoil hat material, but that's kind of all I got to say. I really wanted to bring like a box of tea or something, because like LGBT, like I want to drop the tea, because yeah.
No. Get ready. Want to thank Leah for organising today. Before we end this, just want to ask, is there anybody else who wants to speak?
Yay! Come on!
Thank you. This is my first time speaking.
I love it!
Sorry about that. So, I'm very conscious that this is let women speak, and so I'm in an odd place. My life has been shaped by sexual abuse. First time I was raped, I was 4.5. So I've dedicated my life to safeguarding. That's what the only thing I could do. I'm sorry, I can see I've upset some people already. I'm sorry.
Keep going.
My field has been, so my life, my field went into disability abuse. That's what I did. That was before I had a stroke a couple of years ago. And that maybe 80% of disabled people are abused. When you're vulnerable, you're abused. For me, it's happened with money, it's happened with meds, it's happened with a lot of things. I had a brain injury, I got run over by a car as well as having a stroke. I believe in the concept of hate speech. I'll tell you why. There's different forms of speech, and we heard about different, like, communications. If you have seizures, I have seizures daily. If you have seizures, some people are very cruel, they're hateful, and they hack into epilepsy websites, so that's speech, and they put flashing emojis and GIFs, so they cause you to have seizures. So that's actually hate speech. They pick a group and they do it, and they're just typing words. So I believe in that concept, but what we're talking about here is just bullshit. You know, that's not the same. I know a lot about, like, sexual abuse in psych hospitals. Someone mentioned that before. In psych hospitals, men get beaten up a lot, physical violence. In psych hospitals, women get raped a lot and sexually assaulted. These are sex differences. One time when I was in hospital, I hadn't been able to pee for a week, and I had to get catheterised, and it didn't go well. And the nurse who was doing it, female nurse, she wasn't comfortable touching penises, and so she ripped part of my urethra all the way up to my stomach, putting the catheter in. And in the end she said, oh, because it was bleeding a lot, I'll get someone else, and a man came and did it. You should be able to honestly say, I want a man, or I want a woman to give you medical care. You should have the right to say no.
Thank you for being brave enough to tell your story and speak out. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to end the stream now. We're going to end our Speakers Corner. Thank you again to Leah for organising today. And
Thank you to everybody who's come to speak. Let's keep speaking. Yep. Let's keep shouting. Yep. Hold the line. Yep. We are winning.
Yeah.
Women don't have penises. Yeah. Men don't have vaginas. Yeah. Non-binary is nonsense. Yeah. Transitioning children is abuse. Yeah. And that's all I've got to say on that. Thank you.
I suppose I'll say, stay loud, my friends, and also Kelly J. King never loses.
Yay! Good job. Good job, people.
Oh, no, I'm coming along.
Need some more cardboard.
Okay, so that's it. I'm going to end the stream now. So as I said, take out my friends. I love you for now. I'll talk to you later and stone out. Was my head shot? Probably not. Bye.
Tiara is a nice event, wasn't it? That was nice.